Good afternoon, Nutmeg and Beyond Curling Nation. Pinto here. If you can all hopefully hear us, we've had some major technical difficulties. This is in essence a sound check and a full system check. Welcome, if applicable, to the 2023 Yale SuperSpiel Final. We'll bring you up to par on the scores in a moment. Though our main event today on Sheet B is Villanova versus RPI. Villanova shooting now with the Red Rocks. RPI have got the Yellowstones. Over on Sheet A, we've got our bronze medal match featuring MIT versus UPenn. UPenn are shooting the Yellowstones with MIT throwing the red. Score on their sheet after 3 ends is 3-2 in favor of MIT. On Sheet C, in our second event, we've got Penn State number 2 that is, versus Cornell. Cornell are shooting the Red Rocks, and they are also in the fourth end. Penn State 2 are throwing the Yellowstones, and the score after the first 3 ends in that match is 5-3 in favor of Cornell. We will, of course, be featuring our main event, the A event, first event, for the overall champions of the Yale 2023 SuperSpiel. And that is featuring RPI with the Yellowstones, also known as Team Skinny Larry. And they're facing off against their friends from Villanova, throwing the Red Rocks. The score after 3 ends is 3-2 RPI. All 3 rinks are headed back toward our lounge in the fourth end. These are going to be 8-end matches, plus an extra end or 2 if necessary to settle all ties. It's been an awesome weekend, thanks to our friends Juan and Christina, hosting the lounge, hosting the kitchen and all the meals, as well as getting their crew out there on the ice to get this event ready to be brought to you all. And being as we are also still in the process of reconnecting our own feed, not too sure just yet how many viewers. Okay, and we've also got our text up. Hey there, David G. Thanks very, very much for letting us know the audio is up, and I hope you can still hear it. All indications from our end would suggest that you can see it. Although, by all means, please phone the club to let us know if something interrupts on your end. We did have some major issues with our modems, etc., and our router. Seems to be all right now. On Sheet B, it's worth pointing out that they are unfortunately limited to just a three-person roster due to an attendance constraint. Riley Brady will be throwing, as they say, second, and just delivered his last stone. Liam Woods is the lead slash vice, and they're skipped by Joe Sullivan. Our buddies over at RPI are skipped by Jacob. The vice is Claire. Their second is Sam, and their lead is Cecilia. Apologies, we do not know the names of the participants on the other rinks. We were not able to get a roster due to chasing down our internet and technical problems, but we'll keep you apprised to those games as well. On sheet A, UPenn has just brought down their stone to line up now three guards. MIT counting the first and third stones. Skip has just come in to take a look at their next shot, having some communication back down to his shooter, and they're having a look of the overall assessment. On sheet C, Penn State has just brought a rock down to shake them up a little bit and are now seemingly sitting three rocks in the house. Cornell Skip having a quick assessment of things, specifically on that shot rock, although now he is looking to run the in off from the number 3 Penn State stone, maybe cut back across, possibly get himself a double, keep the shooter. MIT's shot has come to rest in the full 8 foot to now leave them lying the first 2 stones. Penn's Skip having a look to see if they're going to hit and has asked her team to do such. Shots coming down on sheet C with a real nice weight. Took out that third stone, did rub off the shot rock and unfortunately spin back into the third position, but it did shake things up pretty nicely for him. Cornell seems pretty content with that for now. Jacob Lorelli on sheet B, having a chat with Claire. I think it's Gattardi. We had a nice conversation with Claire's family down in Austin, Texas. I want to say hello, Vicky, I think. Claire's mom down in Austin. Hope you're all tuned in. Hope you're having a great time down there. Looks like Claire and Jake have decided to peel the guard presented by Villanova. Meanwhile, on sheet C, Penn State's getting ready for their latest shot. And this is their vice's last stone for the end. Still counting the first 2. And they seem to be bringing down something to guard their shot stone in the form of likely something in the top of the house or just short of that. As shots out of hand, sweepers are staying off it for the time being. Meanwhile, Claire's shots coming in. Sweepers have stayed off it. That raise they were looking to execute did chip and split the corner. Consensus here in the lounge seems to be that that's all right. They did get that guard out of the way. at which Villanova is immediately signaling that they would love to place that guard right back and protect their shot rock. RPI does have the hammer here in the fourth end. Cornell's shot is off and away on sheet C, and they're looking to remove that guard, although the weight did come down, and it looks really good. They chipped the guard out of the way, rolled it onto the top 12 of no consequence. Penn State's going to need to cover that back up if they'd like to keep their number one stone in the position that it rests. We've got a really lovely looking guard by Villanova coming down on sheet B. These folks are doing a really great job sweeping by themselves with just one sweeper. And Claire has laid up, oh sorry, that was not Claire shooting. That was Riley Brady laying up a really nice guard. Sheet A has a really nice double takeout that was just executed. Sophie, I believe, is their skip, and a round of high fives for the rink and a big old smile. Sophie of UPenn just made an awesome double to remove those stones. And I can't see exactly where she rests. Her shot did roll to the back 8. It is the number 2 stone in decent order. There's still a lot of guards lined up on the center. Penn State's executing this guard on sheet C. It curled maybe an inch too much, but it's in pretty perfect order, and a round of fist pumps for the crew. Back to Cornell. Meanwhile, in our main event, Jake Lorelli's into the house for what looks to be his first. And by all indications and by the broom placement given by Claire, they are likely coming in with some really down weight to maybe get through that port and chip that shot rock right off of the top of the 4-foot. Hey, Vicky G, thanks for jumping in, and our pleasure. It was pulling teeth a bit there with the modem and the computers, but we got that all worked out. Hey there, Jay Ward in the house. Go Red, rooting on his pals at Cornell. Couldn't quite see what just went down on sheet A, though. MIT's skip just made a really good shot. Lots of action over there. I can't quite see because there's a lot of athletes in the way, but they do now seem to be counting the first and second shot. We're starting to get a few Cornell stones piling up in the house on sheet C, although for the time being, they're still just counting the ones. So it looks like Ms. Bria is talking to her mates about just lying down another center guard. UPenn is up on sheet A. Sophie's about to deliver her final stone in the 4th end. And on sheet B, Villanova's stone is coming in rather nicely. Sweeper's just escorting it for now, and they're happy to just drop that right out front as an additional congestion in the center. Certainly took back the run back with Hammer coming. It looks like they stand a pretty good chance to steal one here in the fourth, possibly tie up this match at 3. Looks like Penn State will be shooting first. Penn State's final stone on sheet C. Hard to tell if it has become the third stone. We assume for now. Actually, no, we don't think so. They've got 2 stones in the 8-foot that are really close, although safe to say that they're just counting the 1. And Cornell hammerstone forthcoming. They're likely to just draw down to the 4-foot for the force of 1 here in the 4th. And with the 2-stone lead at current, they should be satisfied with that given the condition. Hammerstone of MIT on sheet A in our bronze match is on its way with some pretty good hit weight. Sweepers are on it. And wow, fantastic double on sheet A. A lot of athletes in the way, so we'll wait until that shakes out. Seems like they have taken seemingly 1 here in the 4th, but we'll wait until they kick the rocks, as is the hammerstone with some hit weight. They weren't able to shake anything up, so it looks like that red stone on the 4-foot shall remain. Hammer also coming down for Cornell on sheet C. Sweepers were down, now back up. This stone looks a little hot. Hopefully it'll come to a rest. It's not going to. So we're looking at a steal of 1 by the Penn State Nittany Lions here in the 4th end. And that should bring them back within 1 at the end of 4 ends. Cornell 5. Pardon. Penn State. Yep, Cornell 5, Penn State 4. In our gold medal main event match, we are all knotted up at 3 after 4 ends with 4 to go. 5th end rocks underway on both sheets A and B. MIT looking to place up a center guard, as is Villanova. And again, if you're just tuned in, Villanova is unfortunately shooting with just 3 players on their rink due to a participant not being able to make it down. Penn State on sheet C, looking to open up this 5th end, presumably with a guard. Did not see the actual shot call. They may elect to bring it into the house. We'll know in just a moment. Got a really cool uniform for the Penn State lead. Full suit with the Penn State gear. School insignia. Looks like there's some either deer or moose. Bunch of flowers, and of course, plastered with Nittany Lion logos all over it. And that seems to be a guard. Sweepers are on it. Pretty moderate brush. Over on sheet A, 3rd stone is coming in with a couple of high guards, 1 by each rink on the center line. Villanova on sheet B is looking to take out the shot rock by RP and has nicely done such, rendering a house with a split for just their 2 stones. No guards out front. Sheet C Cornell lying up a really beautiful looking corner guard to open up the 5th end here. And the final stone for Penn State's lead on sheet C is out of hand. Looks like they're happy to tap up that existing corner guard, possibly trying to split them. Looks like they will split them both onto the rings very nicely. That's a pretty good tick. Knock that center guard about halfway into the 12-foot. Shot rock is biting the 4-foot, albeit fully exposed, for which the Cornell skip has promptly asked his teammate to take it out. Although, reevaluating the broom, they're just going to ignore it and draw. In our main event, Villanova has now placed a 3rd stone into the house. Our buddies from Penn State on the ice are accompanied by a bunch of gents from the other Penn State 1, I think. 4 really great dudes. Decided to hang around to cheer for their fellow mates here, and they're all a bunch of really cool guys, so we're glad they're joining us here in the lounge. And I'm just guessing that, well, a lot of you probably aren't from Pennsylvania, but maybe Eagles fans, they got a big game coming up themselves. Go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly. So, yeah, it's on.
Oh, that's gross. No.
They thought at first, is that Thad? That's Thaddeus. They thought at first Mr. Thaddeus Buchanan might not have worked out, but now that we see the resultant, he did pump up his center guard to the other edge of the 4-foot and leave the shooter in a beautiful position, putting some real pressure on Cornell, who have elected to hit the 2nd best stone and seemingly tried to roll under cover to the center, although it's just not quite coming back, but it will remove that likely, as long as it can get by. It might have rubbed off the back one a little, though did go to the back rings. It's either out of the house or just biting. Well-placed stone, and took away the pressure they had, for which Thaddeus is up again. Thad is going to try to curl around that center guard and get themselves a shot rock, 2nd shot stone. Sam of RPI is out of the hack with his 2nd and final stone in the 5th end. And Jake's just trying to hit that and maybe get the double. Nice looking stone. He hit it pretty thin. Didn't quite hit it thin enough to rest on the shot rock, but did keep itself in contention in the back of the 8-foot. They seem to be in better shape than what they were looking at before that shot. Interesting development over on sheet A in the MIT UPenn match. Sophie of UPenn is asking her mates, likely, to take out the number 4 stone and maybe carom off of it into the shot stone. MIT's got a really well protected shot rock, mostly covering the button and behind a whole lot of cover. So UPenn's gonna need to get a little work together to open things up for them here in the fifth end. Really nice looking control down weight by Villanova. They bump back that yellow stone, albeit leaving a little basket there in the back of the forefoot. Jake of RPI is asking Claire to come down with some hit weight, probably get them right between the eyes and send them both off the rings. Could be a jam there on the back one, which wouldn't be too bad for them, although if they could clear them both and keep that shooter right in the middle, they will have themselves a split end. Shot off on sheet A, and Claire is out with her first stone on sheet B. Looks to be a real nice control, slightly up weight. Sweepers are content to stay off it for now. Jake's down there watching the line, and they got one of them rolled over in front of their backer. And that's good for second shot, and that'll work out for them for now. On sheet C, Cornell is ordering up a hit of that shot rock. Sweepers are on it. This one starting to curl. It's looking good. Sweepers are back down on it a second time, and it's really starting to bend, but they're giving it some really firm brush, and this is going to be a real good one. It did curl a little more than they would have preferred, although worked out in their favor. That's a very nice lie. They did move it back just enough and conveniently roll themselves under some extreme cover, as well as make it the number one stone. Young lady that just threw that one up is having a look on the monitor. It's a great shot and seems to be satisfied with it. Big smile. On sheet A, UPenn's Vice out of the house with his first of two. Sophie calling the line in. Sweepers are down on it. They were hopeful to skinny through there and shake up some of that traffic in front on the 12-foot. Although they did get that center guard and chip it out of the way, so that was purposeful for them. It's going to be interesting development over there as rocks are starting to accumulate on sheet A. RPI's latest did over curl, was not able to make the destination. Shot back to the Villanova skip for his first of two. Joe Sullivan having a communique with his mates. Seems fairly confident about what he's going to do, and that being fairly obvious about a control up hit of the sole yellow stone in the house to give himself a split here in the fifth. On sheet C, Cornell's Vice's last stone is out of hand and looks very, very good. Sweepers are on it. If they could get that to swing a little more. Cornell's skip is finishing it off. It's open, albeit in a really cool spot, because they're going to want to be really careful how they remove this. It is, for the time being, just about fully on the forefoot in the top, and has nothing but a bunch of jams off to the right. So they'll want to be able to be sure to, at minimum, nose this. Jam, not the end of the world here. But they would like to get to the inside, because if they could get the roll behind cover, this would be a fantastic position for them as we approach skip stones. Speaking of which, Jake Lorelli of RPI down in the hack, cleaning his first of two. And And while it might look, depending how good your monitors are, there are 2 stones of Villanova's in the 4-foot, just about locked. And here comes Jake with some firm weight. Sweepers are on it really hard, and they're staying on it. And he likely can get them both, and he did. The shooter may have, we believe the shooter also stayed on the rings in the very back 12. Could be a biter. Either event, that's a fantastic shot, Jake, and a great call, Claire. Penn State did overcurl, although raised up what was their guard and nicked the best rock into the wide open, so Cornell's got some work to do to preserve that, to try to keep their steal alive. Their skip will be down for his first rock in a moment. Sheet A, we still have that continued congestion. Not much has changed. MIT is still the shot rock, although there's a very closely placed second stone, likely biting the top of the 4-foot for Penn, which is going to make it fairly difficult for MIT to think about getting the deuce here, though this shot will give us a great determination of what might happen. And whether that rock on sheet B was in or not, it is no longer, pardon, overcurled. So it's still seemingly the shot rock. Most recent try by Villanova, unfortunately did not curl enough. It likely got within 2 inches of it, but it did go through the rings without any effect. RPI has now got a beautiful position as Jake finds something on the ice, picks it up because they're probably running right over that shot path, and they will be. Claire has given Jake the extreme end of the 8-foot, and Jake is going to obviously just split the house here, not leave a double, set himself up to take at least 2. First Cornell skip hand rock is out of hand. Sweepers are now on it. They're hopeful to just guard their shot rock, although it is starting to cut and curl really hard. So they're going to just bring it down and shake things up. And that's a pretty good placement. They steered it in to a really good number 2 contender, which is important because it was a little heavy and it swung a little much, leaving the shot rock wide open for Penn State, although they have got themselves a lot of red rocks there in the 8-foot. We're going to go over there in just a moment to show you that house. From our monitor, it's still red with 1 rock. Second stone is yellow. Third and fourth, though, also red. So Penn State would want to be careful with this final rock of theirs here in the 5th end. And it looks like they're going to come down with some down control weight, try to hit that number 1 rock, and spill over to the pile on what is our left side of the sheet. Meanwhile, on sheet A, Sophie of Penn is out of the hack with her first of 2. And we're not too sure. We didn't see the call. There were a bunch of athletes in the way, though they're just coming down to shake things up a little. And she did with a very nice one. Penn State's shot on sheet C, a little heavy and wasn't able to cut. They're still in okay position for now. Not sure, although Cornell is having a look at that number 2 stone, so we're going to take that now. They're having a pretty in-depth discussion on sheet A with the final 2 stones coming, so we'll keep you up to date, but there's not much other than a bunch of strategizing going on over there. Seems like MIT is content to just guard. That seems to be the leading discussion. And in our championship event on sheet B, They are opening things up here in the sixth. The first stone of RPIs did float onto the rings and bite the forefoot. So Villanova's going to do the disciplined maneuver and place a corner guard on the other side, although this looks like it may. Oh, that's a beautiful corner guard. A really nicely placed shot there by Liam Woods, who they've submitted as their lead slash vice. When we play with three participants, for those that aren't as familiar with the game, and being as the skip is limited to just throw 2 of the 8 stones, whether we call them the first, the second, or any combination of third, the first shooter will throw 3 rocks. The second shooter will also throw 3 rocks. And the skip, Joe Sullivan, will throw the final 2 stones in each end. We've got the final rock in the Penn State. It was really close. It almost worked out, but it looks like Cornell likely stole the one here in the 5th to knot things up at 5, and yes, they have. And we've got the soothsayers of Penn State 1 in here saying, we are going to overtime, bonus curling. And I'm not here to say they're wrong, because we are all knotted up at 5 after 5. Now that RPI has brought their second stone into the house, Villanova's calling for a control hit with just their one sweeper, who's doing a real heck of a job. That's some really good brushing. I can see him huffing and puffing from here. It's coming in rather nicely, and it's going to hit and possibly, oh gosh, it just overcurled a bit. It did bump the stone, moved it across a little further into the forefoot. That's where our second sweeper will really come in handy. We wouldn't slight anyone for that. If they simply had a second body out there sweeping, that shot would have rung in really nicely. It did keep itself in the back 12, so that's something that could come into the mix later. And on sheet A, Sophie of UPenn is in the house for her final stone, and they have taken an extreme angle on the edge of the sheet. The only chance Sophie would have here to score is if she could come around this entire mix of guards and rest up alongside the shot rock of MIT's, but she would have to likely cover part of the pin, as in it's got to be perfect. Perfectly thrown and exceptionally swept. Here she comes now with her shot. Very nice release. Sweepers are content to stay off it for now, but now they're giving it some brush. It looks pretty good, but it did overcurl, unfortunately. Had clipped the guard. A lot of rocks to clear up. They are having a closer look, although unless we're just not seeing, and we are on the complete opposite angle of the sheet. Hearing some oohs and ahs here in the lounge at Nutmeg. The most recent shot of Villanova, again, had unfortunately overcurled. Did go by the shot they were intending to hit. Jake's asking Sam to bring one into the top 12 to guard things. Shot's out of hand and on its way down. For a quick recap on the scores, on sheet A in our bronze medal match, MIT has jumped out to a 5-2 lead after 5 ends. First rock headed down the ice for the 6th end. In our championship match on sheet B, we've got another tight one with a score of 4-3 to the advantage of RPI. And on sheet C, we are all knotted up between Penn State and Cornell. A lot of guards starting to come into play on sheet C. Looks like Thaddeus is back in the. Oh, they're going to change that shot. Thaddeus is back in the hack. I guess they're going to opt to take out that soul stone of Cornell's in the house. Some down weight. Hopefully, for their sake, roll undercover, a few stones over, and they'll be well served. Shot's got good weight, but it's already cutting, and the sweepers are brushing the heck out of it. And it is going to overcurl, but they'll get the wick off that center guard. It was unfortunate. They took their stone over to the side, maybe it is biting the top 12, although they weren't able to successfully remove the Cornell stone, for which their skip has promptly requested their second to now split the house, indicating over in the top 8 foot of the rings behind cover. And yes, if whether you're on full screen or not, you should be able to see at home, depending what device you're watching on. There are 2 guards, one of each color, over on our left-hand side of the sheet. So if they can bend this shot around the 2 of them and lie it in the top 8, they'll be looking really sweet. Claire from RPI has just made her second shot, and not too sure of those third and fourth. We think it's the red stone, so for the time being, RPA is likely sitting 2, although Joe Sullivan has now asked his vice, Riley Brady, to come in and take out the number 2 stone. MIT's shot is out of hand on sheet A and sweeping it abruptly to get around those guards. Sheet B, sweeper was on, but now off.
Are they taking out the one red, maybe? You never know. Let's improvise. Sweet, shoot hard.
That's
Get to the back.
We call that a semi-double. That was a pretty decent looking shot by Riley Brady. They caught the outside of the number 2 RPI stone. Shooter rolled off the rings, but as the 2 stone of RPI sliced toward the back of the house, it kicked the number 1 stone about 2 stones worth off of the back of the 4 foot, which is a big advantage because now that takes the scoring zone down, as in it broadened it up, moved it under cover, but the full 4 foot is now open for either rink to get there first. Sheet C, Cornell skip is asking that they remove the stone in the top 12 of Penn State's. Sweepers are on it really hard, and it looks pretty good. Hard to see because the skip is situated directly in front of me. We know they'll hit it, which they did, and it lied real nice. It rolled over maybe an inch or 2, which is pretty perfect. They did leave themselves a port for that number 1 stone on the tee line. Though they did leave a nice guard in that top 12 to take away what would be an otherwise pretty preferable draw path on the board side of the sheet, for which Penn State, Martirano and Bria are discussing. And wouldn't you know, yeah, they're gonna per what's out there, curl down to that shot rock, try to get behind the stone of Cornell's in the top 12, and maybe rest somewhere near that current shot rock, trying to out count it.
Are they double takeout?
Villanova's most recent was just unfortunately a little bit hot and traveled all the way through the rings with no further effect. Over on sheet A, once again, we are getting a high count of guards.
It's too hard. It's going to knock ours out. It's not doing anything.
On sheet C, Penn State shot did overcurl. They grabbed their own, removing it from the rings. not of so much consequence. They did unfortunately provide extra guard cover for the shot rock, and it does look like it's the third best zone, but Cornell does have at least a split house. They could possibly be counting three. Their skip has asked their vice to come into the 8-foot on the opposite side, maybe under some partial cover. If they can bring that where ordered, it will give them a split of at least three, possibly four. Jake of RPI has got his sweepers on his most recent shot. It looks real good if it has enough weight. It's going to come right down. It's going to end up clicking one of these guards. That's not bad. We're starting to see some rocks there. RPI does have a split house. Villanova skip Joe Sullivan having a look at what's going on, and they're just going to draw around to the 4-foot. Cornell's shot did get around all of that. It was a little hot, but I like where it lies. It's in the back 8. It's behind the other red rock on the top 8, and thank you, Vicky. We did just get a. We'll actually, while they're not shooting, we'll give you a peek of our far B sheet. It's not great. It's something with our lens. We'll show you in a second. There's been a request, everyone, for the far angle, far end sheet B. We did have a problem with the lens on that upon installation, so some days it gets foggy and some days it gets really fuzzy. Villanova's shot is also a little heavy, rests in the back 12. On sheet C, Penn State is going to hit that top 12-foot, try to run it back to hit the shot rock. It looks pretty good. It's got perfect weight. Sweepers are holding it really nice, and this could, gosh, on the way by, it clicked their own. Not the greatest result. It looked really good coming in. It just needed to curl a scotch more, and it would have come straight back. End result, there are now 4 Cornell red stones surrounding the 8-foot, as well as shot in hand. So they've got a big advantage here in the 6th. And while all the teams are chatting it up, Vicky and all others, here's our far sheet B, other than knowing that it's perhaps a curling ring or maybe even a dartboard or an archery target. That's what you got. So we'll flip back to our primary view. Jake Lorelli of RPI has laid up a beautiful center guard to protect their shot stone. And they may even be sitting the second shot. It's just too difficult to tell as they're pretty close. Either event, Joe Sullivan with his final stone is going to come around the mix right to the 4-foot. And that is going to be the hammer. Tom, did that come through on your? It's yeah, it's unfortunately, Vicky, we just can't get the far A or far B. We can get you far C as well as overhead from all the near sheets. So we've been, until we can get that lens fixed, we've been relying on our 6-house view as well as the 3-house views of both near and far end. And final shots out of hand by Villanova. They are looking overhead. Claire and Riley, that is. We might be looking at a measure. Claire has indicated that she thinks RPI has taken 2. That has been affirmed by our buddy Riley Brady. And yes, we've got a steal of 2 in the 6th by RPI to launch them to a 7-3 lead. Pardon, 6-3 lead after 6 ends. Still a tight match. Plenty of curling to go. Although now we're down to the final, presumably 2, maybe not. If this is going to work out for Penn State on sheet C, and as our friends have forecast, we are still looking like possible right down to the wire. Though this shot seems really nice. It's curling. If they can get by. Oh, and it wrecked on that top 8. Needed a little bit more brush. It was headed down to that number 1 stone, maybe number 2, but it was going to lock right on. We've all done it. Just curled a little too much at the end, and unfortunately, it's shot rock, but it's sitting wide open for Cornell, and their Vice and Skip having a look. They're definitely going to hit it. Skip's indicating that he would love to hit it to the right side, our right side of the rings, and spill it over behind cover. And he'll be looking pretty good to take a whole bunch here, but never fret. The final stone of Penn State is still forthcoming. And this is one of those situations where with 2 in the back 8 and 1 on the tee line, there are absolutely plenty of places where they can park down with their final stone and maybe even still steal one. But Penn State's likely to be faced with a real tough hammer stone. On sheet A, MIT's final stone is off. Sweepers are on it. UPenn has got one fully buried in the 4 and another fully buried in the 8-foot, currently counting 2. And if that sits, Sophie of UPenn will now have, if there's a port to get through, and you can see on your monitors, they're likely to tap. They've got 2 in hand and would really love to count a 3rd here, as that would tie this match up after 6. On sheet C, Cornell's Skip is out with a nice looking down hit. It's starting to bend. It's looking real sweet. Sweepers are on it. Vice is calling for it, and it's going to put it right through. It pops over. That was a very good shot. Well swept, well thrown, round of pumps by the crew. And if you can't see it, Penn State is facing 5. There are plenty of places, and this is where I always try to be as calm and cool as able. If they execute a well-engineered shot, they can. Looks like they're maybe going to hit and roll back to the 1. I think they are. And if they hit and roll behind the cover, they could actually be shot rock, perhaps still steal. This is the critical part of the game. Meanwhile, Sophie has laid up a really nice one, and wow, real nice, Sophie. UPenn has executed a fantastic shot on sheet A. They've got some fan base over there, come down from Montreal. And wouldn't you know, with that take of 3 in the 6th, Sophie and her mates at UPenn are now tied with MIT at 5. Sheet C's final shot is out of hand. This looks good, and unfortunately it overcurled. It clipped the guard. And ladies and gentlemen, yes, Cornell's going to have a draw for 6. Which is unfortunate because this match was really, really tight, and the ice has changed. I'm seated about as close as you could be to the center line on sheet C. I've personally witnessed it start to pick up, so the swing is hard to chase sometimes, and we've got the advantage here because we play on this ice all season. I'm not sure of this team, how many of them have been here since last year. I don't think any, so it's been at least a year that they've been here. Shot looked really good, and it's unfortunate because as it rests, yeah, Cornell's going to have themselves a draw for 6. Seventh end underway on sheet A. On sheet B in our championship match. I'm going to take you down to the house for a moment. Pardon, we can't do that. So we're just going to check it out from here. We've got 2 stones in the back of the 8 for RPI. Villanova's got a couple of guards. A couple of nicely placed center guards for the time being. And that one, having a look to see whether or not it did cross and count. It did. It's about as high of a guard as you could be without hogging. Shot back to RPI. Our man Sam is heading out with his final of 2 shots, and Jake's going to ask him to just come down, presumably to the 4-foot. Sheet C's Hammerstone is out of way, and it looks like they are going to take the 6. Beautifully swept by the gents from Cornell, and looks like Red got Team Red. Red Stones took 6th in the 6th. And are very happy about that. So after 6 ends, Cornell has propelled themselves to an 11-5 advantage. We've still got 2 to go, so you never know what can happen here. We'll stay tuned and keep you posted. Back in our championship match on sheet B. Villanova's Riley Brady is coming out with his first of 2. He's coming out with some pretty firm weight. Looks like he's going to try to hit that stone in the back 8 and roll under cover. There's soul sweepers on it. I can hear the sweep call from here. Now off. Looks like it's coming in nicely. It's not going to hit the inside, but it will remove it. Did jam onto the shot in the back 12, but somewhat effective. It moved it out of the way for something they might more conveniently sit on later, but unfortunately it hadn't come across as they had intended, giving a bit of an advantage for the time being to RPI. They did, hadn't they? If everyone's trying to figure out what's going on at home, other than taking an extra 30 seconds, no harm nor foul. I've done it myself, as my color blindedness sometimes is a little worse than others. I think that was you, Penn, that might have thrown the wrong color stone. So they simply replaced it with the right one and then returned the proper color to its rightful owner. It's been a while since I've seen that, and I might have been the last person that I've seen do it. So you just have to make things right. Wasn't sure if they breached a free guard for a moment. Claire G is up with her first of 2 from RPI, and they're probably going to just come in and take away that draw path or likely bring it to the top 4-foot. Sweepers were on it for a moment, now off. Beautiful looking shot. It's come in rather nicely. It is fully buried around that top guard, and it has taken away most of the draw path. It's resting just outside the rings, eliminating what would be a run back, and therefore making it that much more difficult for Villanova to get themselves in there. So they are looking like they're going to tap up the rock that's currently situated just off the rings on the right side of the house. And Joe Sullivan is asking Riley Brady to come down to tap that shot somewhere up near the button. For any viewing at home wondering what all of a sudden might have produced a bunch of brute strength with the first two stones for Cornell, that is by design. They, as they say, throw them through or toss them away because they just don't want anything on or near the rings. Although now, as Penn State has placed two into the 4-foot, now it's time that they come and start to remove them. And they did hit them both, sending one off the rings, sending the other to the rear of the 12-foot, and very rather nicely rendering the shot rock all the way over in the far wing, quite nicely to be shot rock. Although for the most part they have eliminated the threat of turning things into a complicating. Over on sheet A, we do have a bunch of guards starting to accumulate on the right side of the sheet. And for the time being, it would seem as though there's just the sole yellow rock in the back of the 4-foot. And MIT would love to take that out. On sheet B, Claire G is out with her final. And they're, just as with the prior, guarding the other draw path rather nicely. And they are likely still sitting 2. We know they're sitting 1. And without the luxury of that far B camera overhead, we just don't know. To Joe Sullivan, that's of little consequence. He's asking Riley to just come down to the button and, if need be, put a little extra strength in it to rest onto that shot in the back 8, which would certainly make him the shot rock. And Riley's about to deliver that now as our man Thad comes out about perfect timing on sheet C. Sweepers have stayed off in both instances. Villanova's latest is not going to curl. Was a little bit hot, but did remove that shot that we thought might have been the shot rock and are now, in fact, shot rock themselves, albeit wide open. Jake Lorelli has looked right at it. Advise Claire and the rest of the mates that they are going to hit that thing, try to roll back under cover, and if they can do that, they will jump out to a really huge advantage here. They've only got about 3 or 4 inches off the stone, so Jake's likely going to throw some pretty good weight on this. Cornell's vice on sheet C is looking to come down with a nice control to remove that yellow guard. I don't know if that's going to place it all the way through the rings, but it's at least headed to the rear of the house. And yes, it is in fact off the rings. So that's very helpful to Cornell in hoarding off what could otherwise be a surmounting comeback by Penn State. Tap of the shoulder by Miss Bria and a couple fist pumps. We assume that she is, with her first, just going to go around that cover, as that would be the only apparent place to go, being down by 6 here in the 7th end. Sheet A, MIT is coming into the house. Sweepers are brushing really hard. They unfortunately over-curled as the swing or curl here continues to pick up. We're witnessing it as the match goes on, which is not unusual. Although, as our mates next door say, this one was a little too toasty, so therefore did travel right through the rings, and that's not a great thing for Penn State. Cornell's skip now is simply going to come out. May look counterintuitive, and that is no mistake. He's asking his vice to remove their own corner guard because at this juncture, they simply need no guards, no traffic, There's few places for their opponents to sit. Shot looks good. As long as it comes across, it is hugging the center line, which is not a bad time for that to happen. Did go through the rings, leaving all things unchanged. With only 3 stones to go for Penn State here in the 7th. Miss Bria's up again for her final rock, which they're simply going to try to curl around that mix. They do have the advantage, of course, of that guard still being there. So they want to get themselves hidden, try to take 2 or 3 here. 3 would be perfect for them. Shots are off on both sheets A and B. And Villanova's shot looks rather nice. Riley, pardon me, oh boy, it clicked just a little. Darn it. Liam Woods placed a real nice one, but wouldn't you know, even with the click on the way by, it really just rubbed off of it. From here, it seems like they're a good 70, maybe 80% undercover, and it is maybe the 3rd best stone, but they are still the number 1 stone, and they've only left the peak at their shot rock. So it's an interesting situation developing on sheet B. Claire and Jake are having a look at the overall scenario, determine what they're going to do. Meanwhile, over on sheet A, Sophie of UPenn is in the hack with her first of 2, and they've got a pretty open approach down the far left side of the sheet to hopefully get down around all those guards through that port and maybe rest on the top of the button, or if need be, lock on to the shot that currently finds itself biting the back of the 4. And if they could lock on, they would be in a pretty safe spot. Sweepers are on it a little bit, just one of them for some directional. Now up again, and it seems to be finishing off rather nice. As Cornell's skip on sheet C has come out with some firm hit weight. Sweepers are on it, and they're just content to take anything yellow out of the house, which unfortunately overcurled. So now the notion that Penn State can get 3 is still well alive. Back to our championship match on sheet B. Jake's sweepers are brushing real hard, and this is going to work. They plucked that shot rock right off. It did click a little something or 2 on the way back, although they did remove it and seemed to be either the shot rock or the second shot rock. Just hard to tell from here. Consensus here in the lounge seems to think that yellow is shot, so that would bode very, very well for Jake and company at RPI as they near the final rock hammerstone in the 7th end. On sheet C, the skip has just let go his first of 2. You may have heard his mate say that we need 3, and if I'm Penn State, I certainly am finding the necessity for such. You want to be careful where you place them so as not to leave the double, but at the same token, you certainly want to give yourself some guard cover. And they did take away most of the approach from the center side, although we could see that shot stone wide open with the right amount of weight, and provided that it swings how they anticipate. Cornell skip, very poised and confident look. This should work out for them, especially if they remove it off the rings. That would force Penn to settle for no more than 1 here in the 7th end. But we'll see how it shakes out. Joe Sullivan of Villanova is in the hack for the hammer, and they are going to run back that RPI guard that sits all by itself, wide open. His vice, Riley, has got the broom right on the edge of that stone, and that suggests that they're going to throw some big weight at this. Here comes Joe. He's got about normal, and that should do it. Sweeper staying off for now. Riley has not asked, although now he has. And they soared by. So that would, and yes, handshakes. They have agreed to conclude the match. And ladies and gentlemen, may we present you our 2023 Yale SuperSpiel champions, RPI. Congratulations, Jake, Claire, Sam, and Cecilia. You are the Yale SuperSpiel champions of our main event. Some really good curling. Per the count of rocks being run out, our final score is RPI 3, RPI 6, Villanova 3. And it looks like we may also be concluding, yes, they have conceded. Penn State Nittany Lions have conceded on sheet C in the B event. And they are also concluded after 7 ends with a final score of Cornell 11, Penn State 2, 5. And congratulations, Cornell, and a great weekend to both Penn State rinks as well. So now we are in our bronze medal match over on sheet A, as they are in a much tighter match, tied in fact. So we're going to focus everything over there for our friends on sheet A. Saw some real good shot making by all parties today. Sheet A has got, as with the last few ends, a whole assortment of guards, both covering the center line as well as a little bit of the interior side of the sheet. Our buddies from RPI have just popped into the lounge, and I see a bunch of smiles. Congratulations, my friends. They've got some friends and family here, too. A lot of grins. Oh, we see Cornell mom over there, too. Happy campers are they. And for the time being, I've got about 8 athletes from sheet C standing directly in front of me, so I shall stand for what looks to be the hammer on sheet A. And they're throwing against 1 at current. So we know we're going to have an 8th end here, and it's going to be a darn good one. Just not too sure how it's going to shake out, nor who will have hammer and who will not. This is a rather nice looking stone as it comes in. And we don't know. Sophie's brushing it. And it rubbed off. So yes, UPenn has stolen. And we have handshakes as well. They must have run short on time, Tom. Congratulations, UPenn, Sophie and company. In case anybody's wondering, the required time frame to get in all 8 ends had been breached, apparently. So that, unbeknownst to us, had been the actual final end. We wish we knew. But yeah, so University of Penn are our bronze medal champions. MIT, a really hard-fought weekend, finishing in 4th place. And the final score over there being 6-5. Just as a recap, our gold medal event champions, RPI, our runners-up, Villanova, our 3rd place team, University of Pennsylvania, and the 4th place finisher would be MIT, who I believe had at least 1 player from Harvard University on their rink as well. And you're going to hear a whole bunch of banter in here. Everybody's cheering it up. we're going to take one last look over to the comment section to see if anybody had any questions. Oh, Vicky, thank you so much. Jay Ward, thank you as well. Vicky's saying RPI has won 3 Bonspiels this season with 3 different skips. Wow, that's really cool. I dig it. That's good to know. We're going to have to check some of those. Not sure which Bonspiels, but that tells me they're cruising. And yeah, Vicky, great to hear from you again. Just looking at some of the other notes. Mikey, got to do something about your volume. Oh, I know. We've got it fully up, so apologies for that if you couldn't hear us. But thanks again, everybody, for checking out our action. Thank you to Juan and Christina for putting on a great show. We'll leave the cameras up for a second so you could see our friends getting their pictures taken out on the ice, and we'll go radio silent for the time being. Hope you all make it a great rest of the weekend. Take care.